In our busy and demanding everyday lives, sometimes it's hard to find even a single minute to spare. But if you'll take a little less than a minute right now and take that time to appreciate and enjoy the sights, the views, and the trails that you'll find along Wild Dog Creek and the Furnace Loop on the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway, I think you'll find, just like we did, that perhaps this particular area is worth even more than just 1 minute of your time. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen in these first 47 seconds, I hope you'll stick around a little longer. That morning we awoke at the Turkeyfoot Campground. This is a free National Forest campground with 15 first-come, first-served sites. This campground is extremely scenic and along a river, which means it can be very popular and hard to find sites on summer weekends. But as we both packed up that morning, we agreed that this was a worthwhile stop, even if we did have to listen to the on and off again generator across the way from us. According to the signs on the way in and out of Turkeyfoot, this particular low-water bridge can be completely underwater some times of year. So if you come here and this is completely underwater right here, you're probably going to have to find another place to camp. The plan today was to drive a couple sections of the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway that we hadn't driven yet, starting out on the Wild Dog Creek Trail, going around on the Furnace Loop, and then finally ending up that evening at Callie's Lake and Campground. Welcome to the Wild Dog Creek Trail. Both Onyx and Trails Off-Road agree that Wild Dog Creek runs a little less than 5 miles from where it starts at State Route 587 until it meets up with Ernestville Road, also known as County Road 1223. The road is initially paved right off of State Route 587, but eventually turns into gravel and dirt. Both Onyx and Trails Off-Road also agree that this is a scenic and peaceful trail with towering trees that winds its way through the Daniel Boone National Forest. But at that point, that's where they stop agreeing. Because Trails Off-Road rates this particular trail as a level 2 for some mild ruts, whereas Onyx rates this as a level 4 trail due to washouts and some sandstone rocks and off-camber sections. So what level is this trail? Well, it probably depends on the time of year you go and what deterioration has happened due to weather. The majority of this road was graded, gravel, and easy. You could probably get most two-wheel drive low-clearance vehicles down this section. But eventually that trail does start to get a little more challenging. At first, the obstacle started out just as a long, small rut. But that was just too easy and boring for Bill, so he had to start driving like this. And when we found a section that was just a little bit more challenging, Bill insisted on driving it, even with that trailer.
I can take the left.
Are you saying you want to take the left?
That'll make good video.
All right, let me get down this section. I'll come back up and move it.
But after those ruts and small V-notches, it was pretty much back to an easy gravel road again. So is this particular section of the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway worth driving? Of course it is. It is a beautiful, scenic, easy trail with a few minor obstacles, so this is a great place to start practicing obstacles before you try out the harder trails. After leaving that track behind, we drove over Hales Ridge, Beach Timber Road, and then north on Highway 52 toward the Furnace Loop. How did we end up on those roads? Well, we got a little lost, but eventually we did find this. Built between 1867 and 1870 by brothers Frank and Fred Fitch, the Fitchburg Furnace cost over $100,000 just to build these two furnaces, with an additional $60,000 for equipment. Each charcoal furnace actually has its own official name, with the right one named Chandler and the left one Blackstone after their main investors. This is the only double-stacked charcoal furnace in the Western Hemisphere and the largest charcoal furnace at 81 feet tall in the world. It was also the last charcoal furnace built in the Americas. During their operation from 1870 until 1875, these furnaces employed over 1,000 men. Today you can walk through these partly rebuilt stacks at your leisure and enjoy reading the historical signs. Just be aware, this floor is a little slick. These charcoal furnaces were only open for around 5 years due to the financial panic of 1873 and the discovery of iron ore beds in Alabama. When they closed, they cost investors over $1 million. The Cottage Furnace Trail is the next point of interest along the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway Furnace Loop section. This trail is about a half an hour up the road along paved roads and easy gravel roads from the Fitchburg Furnace. The trail down to the Cottage Furnace ruins is almost a mile long one way. About 80% of that walk is on an old, closed, easy gravel road. The last section of trail past where that old road ends, however, is much more moderate, overgrown, and the stairs here are falling apart. So just make sure that you take your time and you watch your step as you traverse that last little bit from the loop at the closed road down to the furnace and back. This part of the trail was also prolific with poison ivy, so keep your eyes open. This furnace operated from 1856 until 1879 and was the first hot blast system in the area. It's also one of very few furnaces in the area that at one time was owned in part by a woman. In 1879, the owner of the furnace learned of his son's sudden death. In his grief, he shut down the furnace in the middle of a cycle, causing the iron ore to solidify and completely block the furnace. That solidified iron ore, it's still in the stack today. You gonna make it, little dog? Once you take that hike back up to your vehicle and get back on Marble Yard Road, if you take it another mile or two and you're watching carefully on the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway map, you can find the trail to Tucker Cave. Although there was a spur road getting you closer to the Tucker Cave trail, we parked just off the road because that spur was a little narrow and confined for the trailer. The trail down to Tucker Cave is a well-defined but narrow trail and includes some rock scrambling and lots of poison ivy. This trail had no markings and I couldn't find it on any maps, which is exactly the kind of trail that I usually record on my All Trails app. But this time, I completely forgot. So how long is this trail? I have no idea, but it's definitely shorter and more scenic than the Cottage Furnace Trail. Nice. I like it. There appears to be really only one good way to get up inside the cave area, and that is along this slippery and wet spine of rock. No, you can't go that way. Expect to need to take a couple of huge steps up.
I get my sandals dry for once.
Good luck on that. Make it? Nice. Yeah, be careful, you don't slide off that. Here's where the cold air's coming from. You found it. It's nice up here. Tucker Cave extends far back into the hillside. And when I explored in here, I could see a light far and distant end. But as I'd forgotten my headlamp, I'm just going to have to come back here some other day to finish exploring it. There's the green. Certain parts of Tucker Cave are filled with 8-legged inhabitants, so you might want to give them just a little room. Yeah. Don't forget that what you climbed up to get into the cave, well, now you've got to come back down that. It was fairly easy for me, and Rue found her own way. Gosh, Rue! Gosh, I should have filmed that.
I gotta get my fat ass down.
I'm sorry I didn't get that on film. She literally just came straight down that. Bill took a little longer, but eventually he found his way down. Yeah, I like my face first better, because then I could see where I was putting my feet. Be careful, you'll slip off if you don't use that, that little divot. And that's behind you. Down.
Down there?
Yeah. That's where I went. All the way down to that dry section. That's why I went face first.
It don't look very dry.
It's drier than everything else. There, now you've gotten down the worst. Just be careful, it's slippery.
I'll watch for the poison ivy while I'm doing it.
Yeah, there is also that. Luckily, I don't see any right in that area. And all that was left to do after that graceful descent was to climb back up to the Jeeps. And from there we drove out on Lone Oak Road, one more part of the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway that we had yet to drive. Lone Oak Road was a fairly easy gravel road with a bit of a decline and a few ruts. Overall, I'd say it was a very scenic level 2 or 3 trail. And it didn't feel like very long after that we found ourselves driving up that familiar driveway to Callie's Lake and Campground. It's one of those awesome places where they'll let even a little YouTube channel like us put a sticker on their door. And more often than not, you're spoiled for choice as to where you want to set up, by the lakeside or over in the woods. And so after some very needed hot showers and some dinner and dessert at Callie's Cafe, we sat back and watched the rain clouds roll by. And the only thing we had left to decide that evening was where our adventure would take us next. For my part, I was hoping it would look a little something like this. So if these rocks, ruts, fields, forests, and waterfalls looked enticing to you, I hope you'll come back and join us then. But in the meantime, go out and find your own adventure.